Auburn gets the late tip on Friday as the march to the Final Four continues. Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Barn Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush. Zep Jasper will be with me tomorrow as I'll let him recap the weekend and look forward to the Sweet 16 and hopefully the Elite Eight as Auburn marches towards the Final Four. The tip was announced. We get the late tip on Friday. Some dudes in the comments on the live show, I guess, trolled us. So I guess we'll just believe anything in the comments. So the amount of activity in the comments now should be hilarious because it's like Ron Burgundy. We'll just read the teleprompter no matter what with no context. But we'll talk about what the X factor is for this weekend and what Auburn's got to do to get past Michigan. And then we'll talk about the Player of the Year race as well in just a second. But before we do that, we got to give a shout to Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. Use coupon code TheBarn25 for 25% off. If you live in the state of Alabama, you can go to any Publix. And if you don't live in the state of Alabama or you don't live near a Publix, definitely go online. Check it out. Buy in bulk, save with the coupon code, and you'll be supporting an Auburn family, which is always great. If you love salsa and you want to try it with a little bit of a Southern kick, you're going to love Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. You need to check it out. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. It's good, y'all. All right, so Auburn plays Michigan. They tip at 8:39 Central Standard Time. So if you're on Eastern Time, it's going to be a late night. It's going to be a late night regardless. But I love the fact that Auburn gets the late tip. And it's because of, obviously, injuries, healing. It's a short drive. It's not a long trip. But you just get the maximum amount of time to rest. It's a grind in the tournament. You play 2 games on very short turnaround times. There's a lot of guys banging bodies together, and some bodies are more bony than others. And we're talking about Chad Baker-Mazara. Huge opportunity though this weekend for Auburn to make it to the Elite Eight. I love the matchup against Michigan, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But I think I want to start with the X factor, and it's no question, it's no doubt in, I think, anybody's mind who watches Auburn basketball. The X factor, positive and negative, is Chad Baker-Mazara. He can carry this team as far as he wants to go, as far as they want to go. He can carry this team. He's just got to be able to keep that intensity and walk that line without stepping across. He was sensational. He was absolutely sensational on Saturday. Again, he is a little banged up. Like Bruce said, he's got a little bit of a bony, you know what, and he took a knee directly to bone. And with 13 minutes to go in the game, he had to come out. But up until that point, there was nobody on the court that could hang with him. He scored 17 points at that period of time. And honestly, had he not gotten knocked out, I think he could have scored essentially just about every time he got the ball. It's amazing to me how well he's able to get around defenders, how he's able to fake out, how he's able to drive on defenders, because he's just not the most athletically gifted guy. Like, I doubt he runs the fastest 40. I doubt he has the highest vertical. I doubt he has the fastest shuttle and change of direction. But the dude's just a basketball player. Dude's just a hooper. And you could tell, I forget his name. We talked about him last night. But you could tell the defender, his number 23, you could tell when Chad was on him in a sort of like an isolation situation. You could see it in his eyes. He was going to get beat. And he did. He broke him down almost every single trip down the floor. And I think he could have scored 30 points. If he hadn't got knocked out, I think he could have scored 30 points. He was shooting at a high clip. He was finishing at the rim. He was getting fouls, getting free throws. All those items are a recipe for Auburn to win in a dominant fashion, which is what they did on Saturday. You can look at some of Auburn's losses, some of the times where you're like, man, that just didn't look like an Auburn team. And Chad is typically not really producing. The 4-game stretch, or maybe it was 5-game stretch, from the ejection at Alabama were tough. He just wasn't there. He wasn't all there. Didn't score a lot, didn't shoot well, didn't really show a lot of, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, didn't show a lot of effort at times. He's just in a funk. It's a long season, and with Chad anyway, things can go. We've seen things be able to go south with him at times. But the last 4 games have been tough. So to see him turn it around has to give you a positive outlook moving forward. If that guy shows up, if that guy continues to show up, this team can beat anybody. Again, rebounding after a tough stretch. I know he's been banged up all year. That has to affect your, affect your mentals as well. But if you can get that Chad, this weekend, Auburn's going to be in the Final Four. Auburn's going to be in San Antonio. Good to see him do that. To me, he's the X factor. I've said Denver's the guy, and I still believe that. If Denver scores double digits, Auburn just about can't lose. But you just need that. To me, the team feeds off of Chad more than anybody. The team's attitude, the team's effort, all of that sort of feeds off of Chad, which is one reason why it's so hard to know which way to go with him as far as how you feel about him. Because even though he does some selfish things at times, he doesn't play basketball selfish. He's a team guy, and they love him. Got to have that guy show up on Friday. It's going to be a long night for Michigan. If Rad Chad shows up on Friday, it's going to be a long night for Michigan. Let's talk Player of the Year here in just a second. But before we do that, we got to give a quick shout out to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN to get a 50% deposit bonus. Give them $100. They're going to give you 50 back on top to play with, up to $1,000. You might as well take advantage of it. It's free money to play with. Like, you have free money to bet with. You might as well take advantage and try to win big. So check it out, mybookie.ag. Still got a ton of college basketball left. Still got a ton of NBA left. Got Major League Baseball. Gosh, there's so many different ways, so many different sports you can play around with. So check it out, mybookie.ag. Let's talk Player of the Year for a second. The voting ends today for Player of the Year. So the last real time for Johni, for Cooper, it's a 2-man show. The last real opportunities for them to impress were this weekend. And unfortunately, Cooper had a really solid weekend all weekend. And Johni struggled a little bit offensively. I'll say both games, but particularly this last game. And voters sometimes they have a ton of recency bias. What have you done for me lately? Especially guys, these people that vote. Some of them you can question how much they actually know about ball, and if it's just, a lot of hot take type guys. But it is what it is. He struggled offensively this last game, and Cooper did not. They'll announce the winner, I believe, on April 1st, which is what? That's next Tuesday. So it'll be after even this weekend. So I guess the good news is if Johni had any pressures on his shoulders or he had any thoughts of, player of the year stuff or going through his mind when he's on the court, that's over. That's over with. This coming up weekend, you just play. There's nothing you can do good. There's nothing you can do bad to affect you. You're either in or you're out right now. The voting ends today. It's unfair a little bit that more than likely this weekend is going to count for so much because of the season Johni had. And in particular, the fact that only one ACC team made it to the Sweet 16 and 7 SEC teams made it to the Sweet 16. One team Auburn beat 3 times and may have an opportunity to play again. I think Auburn had somewhere like 9 or 10 wins against those 7 teams. And when you look at the stats from the season perspective, from the season as a whole, the points are basically the same, a little over 18 points a game. Johni averages more rebounds per game. Johni averages a double-double. Cooper has more assists per game. So if you're just looking at if you look at the actual whole season and you vote on this thing based off the whole body of work, there's just no question that Johni was the better player, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a homer. But, I mean, if the stats are equal, you have to look at the schedule. 7 SEC teams are in the Sweet 16. And Auburn won 9 or 10. I think it may have been 10 games if you count like the double wins for some of them. Multiple games against these teams. The ACC only got 1 in, and it's Duke. A lot of them got embarrassed. The ACC was a putrid conference this year. And the SEC may have been the greatest conference in the history of basketball. They just broke the record for the most teams in one conference in the Sweet 16. Again, if you're unbiased and you're just looking at it as a whole, I think there's no question Johni should be player of the year. But Cooper's he was the betting favorite going into the weekend. I think he closed as the betting favorite. The votes are over. It's probably going to it'd be a monumental upset if Johni got it. I'm very curious to see how that shakes out. I mean, I would almost, if I was a betting man, I would bet on Cooper Flagg winning it, just based off of the hype, based off of the media. I mean, how many times did we see the E60 kid from Maine thing? Apparently, there's never been a good basketball player from the state of Maine. Boy, they talked about it all weekend. It's just a hype train, man. Hype train. It's hard to derail a hype train. I think Johni had a fantastic year, regardless of this stuff down the stretch. He's a legend. He's going to be an Auburn legend. We just need him to kind of bounce back. Need him to bounce back offensively as well. Those other guys can pick it up a lot. There's a lot of different guys that can score. But ultimately, you have to have your best player playing great. You need your best player to be playing at a high level to make a deep run. What's Auburn got to do to beat Michigan? They open as, I think, a 7.5-point favorite. Very similar to the Creighton game as far as the spread goes. But could not be more different than Creighton. You have 2 bigs they call the Twin Towers. They have a pretty deep rotation too. It's the opposite of Creighton. Creighton had like 5 guys, four guys that played 30+ minutes a game. I think Michigan only has 1. That's Trey. So they're deep. They can rotate. They play old school basketball, but they can score if they need to. Auburn's got to continue to do what they did against Creighton. They got to be able to hit those mid-range jump shots, those little floaters, analytics, hate them. And I think teams are playing defense to that. Don't let Auburn get open threes, and don't let Johni Broome score inside. So if Tejada wants to hit the little floater, if Denver wants to hit those little jump shots right inside the free throw line, if Chad wants to hit those pull-ups at the top of the key, let them have it. Auburn's got to keep hitting shots. The defense is going to be fine. If you can keep the bigs out of foul trouble, the defense will be fine. Their guards are not impressive enough. I love Trey. Their guards are not impressive enough to me to feel like there's a huge threat there. They don't have an Ashworth, a guy that can break the defense down and, shoot at a super high clip, get to the hole. They don't really have that guy. They just play old school basketball. They'll take you deep in the shot clock, run their sets. Trey's big enough. He can drive a little bit and get contact, but he's just not going to – he's not going to be a big-time scoring threat. I don't think. I think he only scored 8 points in the first – or in their round of 32 game. Can you guard without fouling? I think that's going to be the biggest. That's going to be the biggest key. Can you guard their bigs without fouling? And if you can, Auburn can win that game going away. They can cover that spread easily. So we'll see what happens. Late tip, everybody, you better get your rest in because it's going to be a late night on Friday. Will the X Factor Chad show up? Will Rad Chad show up? Can we get Broome back on track? This long week of rest should help everybody. And then you only got to go about an hour and a half up the road. Man, it feels good. In that gym where you just dominate Big Ten teams. You emasculate Big Ten teams in that gym. You may get a chance to do it to 2 more. It would be kind of fun to play Ole Miss for the 4th time. They're hot right now. They just dominated Iowa State last night. Well, we'll see what happens. Guys, we're going to be doing the Hoops Pod every single day this week. We're going to keep basketball content rolling throughout the rest of this run. Let's see what happens. We'll have Zepp on tomorrow. Taylor Corn's going to join us on Wednesday. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait till Friday. Guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Is Chad the X Factor? What do we have to do to win this game? Can't wait to hear from you in the comments. Appreciate you guys listening. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe to it. Let's take this thing to the Final Four. Let's go to San Antonio. Starts this weekend. Starts Friday. Thanks for listening. It's another episode of the Barn Hoops Podcast.